this video, I'm going to give you solutions to some of the more difficult problems from the modus tollens module. So let's take a look at some of these derivations. We're going to start with 1.6 LRS 72. So first line is always we're going to show the conclusion. So we say show R, because R is the conclusion. Let's punch in our premises. There they all are. So we have our three premises. So we want R, that's our goal. Once we get R, we will use direct derivation to box and cancel, but we don't have R yet, so we're going to have to go to step 3 and use our inference rules. Okay, so we can't get R just by using double negation, right? Because we don't have negation R. So we're going to have to use our inference rules that work with conditionals. We're going to have to use MP and MT. So what we want to do is look at the conditionals we have and figure out, okay, with each of those, what do we need for MP and what do we need for MT? And then ask, okay, do we have any of those things? And if we do, we'll do MP or MT. And if we don't, we'll see if we can get those things. So we look at line 2, and line 2 is a conditional. So for with 2, for MP, what do we want? We want the antecedent. The antecedent is P, so we want P. With 2 for MT, what do we want? Well, with MT, we always want the negation of the consequent, which is to say the consequent plus a negation. Well, what is the negation of the consequent of 2? It's negation Q. So what do we want? Well, we want negation. Oh, whoops. We want negation of negation Q. What about 3? Well, 3 is not a conditional, so we're not going to do MP or MT with it. It's not going to be the conditional in our modus ponens or modus tollens. Let's look at 4. 4 is a conditional, so we can ask, what do we want for, if we're going to do MP with line 4, then we want the antecedent, and that's negation P. And finally, with 4 for MT, what do we want? We want the negation of the consequent. The consequent is R, so we want negation R. So these are the 4 things we want. And you might find it very helpful, as I have just done, to write these out. And you can write them out either on a piece of scratch paper, or you can write them out right here in the derivations module. We'll have to delete these before the derivation is correct. They're going to stop us from these lines. They'll stop us from successfully completing the derivation, but that's fine. We can delete them when we're done with the derivation, and then we'll finish the derivation. So it can be really helpful to write these out. And note that I haven't yet looked to see if I have any of these. So we're taking a conservative but thorough search strategy. We figure out what are all the things that if we had them we could use, and we're very clear about what those are, without worrying about whether or not we have them yet. And then we say, okay, let's go and see if we have any of them. So we are very clearly separating those two questions. What do I want or need for my inference rules? And then do I have them? And those questions are divided. Okay, so that said, we're looking for P, negation, negation Q, negation P, or negation R. Now in this case, there's only one place to look, line 3, which is Q, and that's not any of these. So unfortunately, on our first step, we said, okay, what do we want for our inference rules? One of those. On our second step, do we have any of those? And we said, oh, we don't. Well, that's kind of a bummer. But we then ask our third question, which is, can we get any of these? So what do we want? Do we have it? If not, can we get it? So we're going slowly through those steps. Perhaps you're saying, go faster. Okay, maybe. We look at line 3. We have Q. And, oh, well, in fact, we can add a double negation to Q, and we'll get what we want for modus tollens with 2. So we're going to do double negation on line 3, which gives us negation, negation Q, and then we can put that together with 2 with 5. So we can say 2, 5, MT, because 5 is the negation of the antecedent of line 2. Okay, there's negation P. Oh, we can use that with line 6 to get MP. Now we have R. Oh, R is what we wanted. Good. We can get rid of these now, and we'll go ahead and say 7DD. And our derivation is correct. Now I want to just make really clear, if we try to do modus tollens with 2 and 3, it's not going to work, right? Why? Well, because MT is really strict. It says, well, what is the negation? What is the consequent of this? You need the negation of this, and the negation of that is that thing plus another negation, okay? The point of a derivation is that it's looking just at the symbols, and it's not thinking about what the symbols mean. And so when it says, well, do lines 2 and 3 fit together in the way in which the MT rule says they have to? The answer is very simply just no, because the negation of the consequent is the consequent plus a negation, and that's what the modus tollens rule is looking for. That means, in a sense, the modus tollens rule is kind of stupid. It doesn't really understand how conditionals and negations work fully. It has a minor understanding of them, but not a complete understanding of them. The modus tollens rule cannot tell that, oh, well, if 3 is true, then this is false, and therefore this is false, and therefore negation P is true. The modus tollens rule can't figure that out. It can only say, oh, I only look for the negation of that, and when I find the negation of that, then I will apply. So the modus tollens rule is pretty stupid, but that means that something very stupid, very simple, can carry out these procedures. Something like your computer, for example, or your phone, and it's actually doing that. So we write out these rules so that and we're very, very precise about them, and they're looking just at the shape, and they don't have any really understanding of what the symbols are, and that's why the modus tollens rule is so strict. Okay, so that's 1.6 LRS 72. We are going to move on to 1.6 LRS 87. So let's go there. All right, here's 1.6 LRS 87. So let's go ahead and set this derivation up. So first line is show the conclusion. Okay, now we know we're looking for Q. Once we get to Q, we're done. We will box and cancel with direct derivation. Okay, let's go ahead and put in our premises as our step 2. Okay, we got all our premises, so that's good. Now we're going to look for applications of MP and MT. Okay, so we look at line 2, where we don't have Q right away. We can't easily get Q. We're going to have to do MP and MT with conditionals, so we're going to look for MP and MT applications. All right, so we look at line 2. We think 2 is a conditional. This is the if-then part of it, so that's the antecedent, P, and this whole thing over here, that's the consequent. So, okay, when we look at this, we think, what do we want for 2, for MP with 2, what do we want? We want the antecedent is P. Okay. For MT with 2, we want the negation of the consequent. What is the consequent? The consequent is if Q then R. So for MT with 2, we want the negation of if Q then R. Yeah? Okay. Let's look at 3. Is 3 a conditional? No. 3 is the negation of a conditional. It's an important one. We're going to come back to it in a second. Maybe you see what we're going to do with it. But if we're just doing this first step and looking at each of the different things, and we think, what do we want? Then we think, well, can I do MP with 3? And the answer is no, because 3 is not a conditional. It's a negation. So we're never going to do, it's never going to be the conditional in our MP or MT. Finally, we look at 4. For MP with 4, we want the antecedent, that's negation P. For MT with 4, we want the negation of the consequent. The consequent is Q, so we want negation Q. Okay, so we want P, negation of if Q then R, negation P, or negation Q. Oh, well, look. There is negation of if Q then R on line 3. So 2 is a conditional, and 3 is the negation of its consequent. 2 is a conditional with a big consequent, and 3 is the negation of that big consequent. So we can do modus tollens with 2 and 3, and we get negation P. Hooray! Good. Okay. Now, well, look, there's 4 and 5 as modus ponens right there, because 5 is the antecedent to 4. It gives us Q. OQ is the conclusion, which is what we want in order to box and cancel with direct derivation. So we say 6DD. Oh, we need to get rid of our notes. Let's do that. We say 6DD, and we are good to go. So that's 1.6 LRS 87. And of course, the difficult thing here, the challenge here is to say, okay, this is the consequent. So for MT, I need the negation of that. And what is the negation of that? Y line 3. So that's what you have to see here. But it's just applying our old methods, or just our basic method. What's the antecedent? What's the negation of the consequent? Do I have those? All right, let's look at the last one, 88. So here we have 1.6 LRS 88. So let's go ahead and show the conclusion. So R. R is the conclusion. R is what we're looking for. Good. All right, let's pop in the premises then. So we don't yet have R, so we can't complete the derivation immediately. And we don't have any easy way to get R, so we're going to have to be doing MP and MT. Okay, so let's look at our conditionals. So on line 3, we have the conditional if negation Q, then R. So for MP, we need negation Q, and for MT, we need negation R. We need the negation of the consequent. Unfortunately, we don't have either of those. For MP with line 2, we need Q, which we don't have. For MT with line 2, we need the negation of the consequent. Okay, so the consequent is that, is negation of negation Q then R. So what we need is negation negation Q then R. And hey, actually we can get that because why? Well, 3 is the inside of this, right? 3 is that. And so if we apply dn to 3, we'll get line 7. So we can say 3 dn. We just put 2 negations on the front. And in general, that's not a good idea, but here it is because it's the negation of line 2. So now on line 2, we have a conditional, and on line 4, we have the negation of the consequent of that conditional, and that's what we need for MT. So we're going to apply MT. What happens? Well, so, right, this is the if-then. So we have if this, then that, and we said, well, not that, and that means not that. So we get not Q. Can we do anything with not Q? Yes, we can. We can go back and use it with 3. So we're going to say 3, 5, MP. We get R, and we are done. So there it is. We just have to see that, oh yeah, I can do double negation on this, giving me that, which is what I need for MT with line 2, and the derivation moves ahead. One funny little thing is we actually use 3 twice in this derivation. Once we apply dn to it, and later on we do MP with it. That's a little bit unusual. We haven't seen that happen, but there's nothing wrong with that. We don't use 3 with MP or MT more than once as the big premise in MP or MT, but we do use it twice. We double negate it and then use that double negation with MT, and then we go ahead and use MP with it. Okay, good. So there we go. There we have our last MT derivation. So if you have any questions about these, please let me know, and good luck with your next derivations.